Hi friends, it's Mrs. Darwin from Towson Presbyterian Preschool, and I'm going to read to you one of my favorite books today called Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. This is written by Judy Barrett and the pictures were drawn by Ron Barrett. I think they may be Mr. and Mrs. Barrett. Not sure. Let's see what happens. You may know this book already. We were all sitting around the big kitchen table. It was Saturday morning, pancake morning. Mom was squeezing oranges for juice, and Henry and I were betting on how many pancakes we could each eat. And Grandpa was doing the flipping. There's the pancake. Seconds later, something flew through the air, headed toward the kitchen ceiling, and landed right on Henry. After we realized that the flying object was only a pancake, we all laughed, even Grandpa. Breakfast continued quite uneventfully. All the other pancakes landed in the pan, and all of them were eaten, even the one that landed on Henry. That night, touched off by the pancake incident at breakfast, Grandpa told us the best tall tale bedtime story he had ever told. Across an ocean, over lots of huge bumpy mountains, across 3 hot deserts and 1 smaller ocean, there lay the tiny town of Chew and Swallow. In most ways, it was very much like any other tiny town. It had a main street lined with stores, houses with trees and gardens around them, a schoolhouse, about 300 people, and some assorted cats and dogs. But there were no food stores in the town of Chew and Swallow. They didn't need any. The sky supplied all the food they could possibly want. The only thing that was really different about Chew and Swallow was its weather. It came 3 times a day, at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everything that everyone ate came from the sky. Ooh. Whatever the weather served, that was what they ate. But it never rained rain, it never snowed snow, and it never blew just wind. It rained things like soup and juice. It snowed mashed potatoes and green peas, and sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers. The people could watch the weather report on television in the morning, and they would even hear a prediction for the next day's food. When the townspeople went outside, they carried their plates, cups, glasses, forks, spoons, knives, and napkins with them. That way they would always be prepared for any kind of weather. If there were leftovers, and there usually were, the people took them home and put them in their refrigerators in case they got hungry between meals. Do you see? He got ready for rain, but what was it? I think it was tomato soup. The menu varied. By the time they woke up in the morning, breakfast was coming down. After a brief shower of orange juice, low clouds of sunny-side-up eggs moved in, followed by pieces of toast. Butter and jelly sprinkled down for the toast, and most of the time it rained milk afterwards. For lunch one day, frankfurters already in their rolls blew in from the northwest at about 5 miles an hour. There were mustard clouds nearby. Then the wind shifted to the east and brought in baked beans. A drizzle of soda finished off the meal. Do you guys see this restaurant? It has no ceiling because all of the weather brings in the food. Dinner one night consisted of lamb chops, becoming heavy at times with occasional ketchup, Periods of peas and baked potatoes were followed by gradual clearing with a wonderful jello setting in the west. There's the jello. The sanitation department of Chew and Swallow had a rather unusual job. For a sanitation department, it had to remove the food that fell on the houses and sidewalks and lawns. The workers cleaned up things after every meal and fed all the dogs and cats. Then they emptied some of it into the surrounding oceans for the fish and turtles and whales to eat. The rest of the food was put back into the earth so that the soil would be richer for the people's flower gardens. The sanitation department, right? That's what we sometimes call the trash truck. They're cleaning it up. Life for the townspeople was delicious until the weather took a turn for the worse. Spaghetti ties up town. One day there was nothing but gorgonzola cheese all day long. The next day there was only broccoli, all overcooked, very soft. And the next day there were Brussels sprouts and peanut butter with mayonnaise. Ew. Another day there was pea soup fog. No one could see where they were going, and they barely could find the rest of the meal that got stuck in the fog. I wouldn't want to walk through pea soup, but I do like the way it tastes. The food was getting larger and larger, and so were the portions. The people were getting frightened. Violent storms blew up frequently. Awful things were happening. That's the ocean right there. On Tuesday, there was a hurricane of bread and rolls all day long and into the night. There were soft rolls and hard rolls, some with seeds and some without. There was white bread and rye and whole wheat toast. Most of it was larger than they had ever seen bread and rolls before. It was a terrible day. Everyone had to stay indoors. Roofs were damaged, and the sanitation department was beside itself. The mess took the workers 4 days to clean up, and the sea was full of floating rolls. I think this bird is happy, but even for the bird, there's too much. There was a storm of pancakes one morning and a downpour of maple syrup that nearly flooded the town. A huge pancake covered the school. No one could get it off because of its weight, so they had to close school. Look, that's a pancake with syrup. Imagine if that was on our school. The sanitation department gave up. The job was too big. Everyone feared for their lives. They couldn't go outside most of the time. Many houses had been badly damaged by giant meatballs. Stores were boarded up and there was no more school for the children. Look, she's running away from donuts, and this man got a noodle stuck on his head. Can you see that? And it looks like this hamburger landed on this poor man. So a decision was made to abandon the town of Chew and Swallow. It was a matter of survival. Let's see what happens. Oh, I think I skipped a page. Hold on, these pages are a little stuck together. There we go. There we are. Oh, look at that sandwich. The people glued together the giant pieces of stale bread, sandwich style, with peanut butter. That's my kind of sandwich. Took the absolute necessities with them and set sail on their rafts for a new land. Look, they made a sailboat, like a raft sailboat. After being afloat for a week, they finally reached a small coastal town which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well enough for them to build temporary houses out of it. The children began school again, and the adults all tried to find new places for themselves in the new land. The biggest change they had to make was getting used to buying food at the supermarket. They found it odd that the food was kept on shelves, packaged in boxes and cans and bottles. Meat that had to be cooked was kept in large refrigerators. Nothing came down from the sky except rain and snow. The clouds above their heads were not made of fried eggs. No one ever got hit by a hamburger again. And nobody dared to go back to Chew and Swallow to find out what had happened to it. They were too afraid. Henry and I were awake until the very end of Grandpa's story. I remember his goodnight kiss. There they are, getting tucked in. The end. That was a really good story, wasn't it? Can you imagine living in a place like Chew and Swallow? What would you want to fall out of the sky for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Would it be the same things all the time? What would your favorite meals be? I think I would like to see spaghetti and meatballs. I really love that meal, but I love so many things. I don't think I'd be very picky. It would be pretty good until it got out of control. So I hope you enjoyed that book. I actually have a couple of ideas for you now that I thought maybe we could take the book and do an activity, right? So I looked into noodle activities. You know, at school we do a lot of things with noodles. Like sometimes they're in the sensory table. We've glued them because they make different shapes and made art with them. We've colored them and made jewelry. But right now, you may not be going to the grocery store that often and may not want to waste much of your food on art or playing with it. And that's okay. I can understand that. So I did use a little food. I used marshmallows and some linguine, like a spaghetti type of a noodle. So I'm going to show you something that I built. This right here is a sculpture that you can build by connecting noodles and marshmallows. Now, it looks pretty flexible, and every time I put it down on the plate that it was sitting on, it kind of falls apart. It doesn't fall apart. It leans over. It does like this. Ooh. But I wonder if you didn't even use marshmallows. What if you used Play-Doh? And maybe what if you used some sort of stick? I don't have popsicle sticks, but those little kebab sticks, like skewers, might work. You might be able to see what you could build with that. It does not have to be marshmallows. And the other thing is, if you do it with marshmallows, you could probably take this apart when you're done and put them in a bag and put your name on it. And maybe when you light a fire in your backyard or maybe in your fireplace, you could roast some marshmallows and they can just be yours since you touched them. So anyway, I thought that was fun. I made a little house. It's really odd and it wants to fall apart. But I saw it online, so if you look, some people are really good at it. I don't know how they get them to stay up. Another thing that I was inspired to do was pull out my pool noodle. Now, I know it's not time for the pool yet. I wish it was, because we would really be having some fun. I don't know if the pools will be open this summer, but if they're not, you can put your pool noodle to good use anyway. There's lots of games that you can do with them, even without cutting them up. You know, you can put stakes in them and you can use them like a little goal, like make it like a rainbow shape and kick things through it. But what I thought of was something I had in my shed was this big ball. So you could, if you had a few of them, you could play with your brothers or sisters, your mom or dad, and use the pool noodle to direct a big ball all around your yard. Like maybe aim it at a part of your fence, or it has to hit a bush, or it has to go under the swing set, or whatever it is. Just like you would a soccer ball. But it would be more funny and more of a challenge, right? It would be a big challenge. I happen to have 3 of these, so I'm going to try that maybe later with my family. The other thought was, what if you had a ball, maybe not as big as this ball, and pretended that it was food falling from the sky? Maybe if you had a hoop that it had to go through, or you had a basket or a bucket, you could try to collect them. You could play like a game where nothing could touch the ground and you guys had to, you know, keep the ball going up in the air. See what you can do. Some of you guys are really good with balls. You're very good at catching and throwing. I'd be surprised if you couldn't figure out something fun to play with a ball in your backyard. So if you can't get in your backyard, you might be able to go to like a park, as long as you can stay away from other people. Because I know right now we're trying to be very careful that we don't make people sick. So, all right, well that was that. And my last thing, and of course my voice is starting to fade, but my friends really love this song. And because of this being about food and meatballs and spaghetti falling from the sky, I figured we could sing On Top of Spaghetti. So if you're watching this and you're in my class, we've sung this a bunch of times. And if you're not from my class and you know it, please sing along anyway. It would be great. So, ready? On top of spaghetti, all covered with cheese, I lost my poor meatball when somebody sneezed. It rolled off the table, it rolled on the floor, and then my poor meatball, it rolled out the door. It rolled in the garden and under a bush, and then my poor meatball was nothing but mush. The mush was as tasty could be, and early next summer it grew to a tree. The tree was all covered with beautiful moss, and early next summer, it grew great big meatballs and tomato sauce. So if you eat spaghetti all covered with cheese, hold on to your meatball and don't ever sneeze. Sorry friends, my voice was going and I even lost my place. But that is typical for me with singing. So I hope you had fun. I love that song and my class loves that song, especially when we say tomato sauce. I don't know why, but it just tickles us. So I hope you guys have a good day. Get outside, maybe throw a ball. If you have pool noodles, see what kind of game you can make up with them. I think you could do something. And if you feel like doing some kind of a craft or building with other kinds of noodles or not noodles, that works too. Something fun inside when you have a little time. So I miss you guys. Have a good rest of I guess I'll come back to you in a couple days. So I hope you have a good day. It's very pretty outside. I'm going to go walk my dogs now. Take care.